His fingers brushed against hers as he handed her the heating pad, and for a moment, the world stopped. "You don't have to hide from me," he whispered, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "Not your pain, not your tears, not anything." Amina's breath caught in her throat as she stared into the eyes of Korea's most beloved actor, wondering how a girl from the dusty streets of Bamako ended up here, in his apartment, in his care, in what felt dangerously close to a dream she'd never dared to dream. But let's rewind. Let me tell you how this impossible story began. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Thank you all for the support, and if you're new here, please kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any of my stories. Aminah Traore was 21 years old when her world split open. She'd spent her entire life in Bamako, Mali, in a small compound house with cracked walls and a tin roof that sang when the rains came. Her father sold vegetables at the market, rising before dawn every single day, his hands permanently stained green from handling lettuce and herbs. Her mother was a seamstress, hunched over an old Singer machine that rattled like it had stories to tell, stitching school uniforms for neighborhood children. They had almost nothing, but they had each other, and they had faith, and somehow that felt like enough. Aminah was studying civil engineering at the local university, balancing textbooks with helping her mother hem trousers in the evenings. But her secret life, the one that made her heart race, happened after sunset when she'd huddle under her thin blanket with her cracked phone screen, streaming Korean dramas on stolen Wi-Fi from the neighbor's compound. She knew every OST by heart. She'd watched Crash Landing on You for times. She had a folder of screenshots of her favorite actors hidden in her phone, labeled Inspirations so her younger brother wouldn't tease her. Park Seo-joon, Lee Min-ho, and her absolute favorite, the one who made her chest tighten every single time he smiled on screen, Kang Min-jae, the actor everyone called Korea's prince. She'd whisper to herself in the darkness, watching him on her screen, "Allah, when will I ever experience something like this?" Knowing the answer was probably never. Girls like her didn't get fairy tale endings. Girls like her didn't go to Korea. Until the day Pastor Emmanuel made an announcement at church. The Korean Presbyterian Mission was offering a one-year cultural exchange program. 5 young adults from West Africa would be selected to live in Seoul, work at Korean cultural institutions, learn the language, and build bridges between Africa and Korea. Full accommodation, monthly stipend, return flight included. Aminah's hands shook as she filled out the application. She didn't tell anyone, not even her best friend Fatoumata. She didn't want to jinx it. She didn't want to hope too hard. 3 months later, the email came. She read it 5 times before she started crying. "You have been selected for the Seoul Cultural Exchange Program. Report date, September 15th. She screamed so loud her mother came running, thinking a scorpion had bitten her. Her parents cried when she told them. Her father sold his best cart to help buy her suitcase and winter clothes. Her mother sewed her 3 beautiful dresses, each one embroidered with tiny stars. "So you remember," her mother said, voice breaking, "that you are our star, no matter how far you go." At the airport, her father held her face in his rough hands. "You are carrying our prayers with you, Amina. Go and shine." The flight was 17 hours. She didn't sleep once. She pressed her face against the window like a child, watching the clouds, whispering prayers and promises to herself. Seoul was real. It wasn't just pixels on her broken phone screen anymore. The cultural exchange program placed her at the Hanok Cultural Center in Bucheon, a traditional Korean village nestled between palaces. It was breathtaking. Wooden Hanok houses with curved roofs, narrow alleyways, the smell of tea and incense drifting through the air. Aminah's job was simple: assist with cultural programs, help international visitors, organize the small library of Korean literature translated into various languages, and coordinate events. Her supervisor, Miss Park, was stern but kind. The other exchange participants became her family. There was Jun Seo, her Korean language tutor, who teased her about her French-accented Korean. There was Nia, a girl from Ghana, who became her roommate and her sister in everything but blood. Nia taught her how to navigate the subway, how to order food without pointing desperately at pictures, how to survive the bitter soul cold that felt like needles on her skin. But even as she adjusted, even as she fell in love with the city, there was a loneliness that pressed against her chest at night. She missed home. She missed her mother's laugh. She missed the chaos of Bamako's markets. And she still watched K-dramas on her phone, still whispered, "When will it be my turn?" Then he walked in. It was a Tuesday afternoon, slow and quiet. The cultural center was nearly empty. Amina was at the front desk, reorganizing a shelf of books about Korean pottery, when she heard the door chime. She turned around and saw him. Black mask, black cap pulled low, oversized gray coat, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Just another visitor, she thought. She bowed politely. "Annyeonghaseyo. Welcome to Hanak Cultural Center. How may I help you?" He approached the desk slowly, casually, like he had all the time in the world. "Do you have any books on traditional Korean architecture?" he asked. His voice was smooth, deep, familiar in a way that made her heart stutter. She blinked. "Yes, of course. Let me show you." She led him to the architecture section, pulled out 3 books, and handed them to him. He took them, glanced at the covers, then looked up at her. Really looked at her. "You're not from here," he said. It wasn't a question. She smiled nervously. "No, I'm from Mali, West Africa. I'm here on a cultural exchange." He tilted his head. "Mali. That's beautiful. Your Korean is good." "Thank you," she said, feeling her cheeks warm. "I'm still learning." He nodded, flipping through one of the books, but she noticed he kept glancing at her. She was about to return to the desk when he spoke again. "Do you like working here?" She turned back. "Yes. Very much. It's peaceful. And I love learning about Korean culture." He smiled under his mask. She could tell by the way his eyes crinkled. That's good. Not many people appreciate the quiet spaces anymore. There was something in his voice, something wistful, that made her want to ask more. But before she could, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, sighed, and handed the books back to her. "I'll come back for these another time," he said. Then he left. She stood there, confused, heart racing for reasons she didn't understand. The next week, he came back. Same disguise. Same quiet energy. This time, he sat in the reading corner for an hour, flipping through a book on Hanak construction. She watched him from the desk, pretending to work on the computer. When he got up to leave, he paused at the desk. "What's your name?" he asked. "Amina," she said. "And yours?" He hesitated. Then he smiled that crinkled eyes smile again. "Just call me Min-jae." Her heart stopped. No, it couldn't be. But when he pulled his mask down slightly to take a sip from his coffee cup, she saw it. The jawline. The mole near his lip. The face she'd stared at on her phone screen 1,000 times. Kang Min-jae. The Kang Min-jae. Korea's prince. Her screen crush. The actor who'd made her believe in love before she'd ever experienced it. Standing 3 feet away from her, in her quiet little cultural center, asking for her name like they were just 2 ordinary people. She gripped the edge of the desk to keep from fainting. He noticed. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly. "Yes. I'm fine. Totally fine." He chuckled, a low, amused sound that sent warmth through her chest. "You recognized me?" It wasn't a question. She couldn't lie. Her mother had raised her to always tell the truth. Yes." He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. "Then do me a favor, Aminah from Mali. Don't scream. Don't tell anyone. This is my only quiet place in this city." She nodded, speechless, her mind screaming even though her mouth wouldn't work. He winked, and she felt her knees go weak. He pulled his mask back up and walked out, leaving behind the faint scent of his cologne and the complete destruction of her composure. She stood frozen for a full 5 minutes. Then she ran to the back office and texted Nia in all caps. "Nia. He was here. Kang Min-jae. I think I just died." Nia's response was instant. "Girl, if you don't breathe." "Then wait, what? Where? When? How? Tell me everything." Amina spent her entire lunch break typing out every single detail, from the way he walked to the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Nia sent back a string of emojis and one sentence. Girl, this is how Kdrama start. Don't fall in love. But it was too late for warnings. After that, he kept coming. Once a week. Sometimes twice. Always when the center was quiet. Always disguised. They didn't talk much at first, just small exchanges. He'd ask about her day. She'd recommend books. He'd linger at the desk, asking her opinion on architecture styles, on Korean history, on things that felt like excuses to stay a little longer. But slowly, carefully, like flowers opening to sunlight, the conversations grew. He asked her about Mali. She told him about Bamako's sunsets, about how the sky turned orange and pink and purple all at once, about the Niger River that flowed through the city like a lifeline, about her parents who worked themselves to exhaustion but still smiled every day. She told him about the sound of the call to prayer echoing through the streets, about her mother's sewing machine, about her father's weathered hands. He listened like every word mattered. He told her about growing up in Busan, about the ocean and the fish markets and his grandmother's house on the hill. He told her about the pressure of fame, about how exhausting it was to always be watched, always be perfect, always be Korea's prince when all he wanted sometimes was to be just Min-jae. He told her about the loneliness of crowds, about smiling for cameras until his face hurt, about reading scripts at 3 a.m. because insomnia was easier than the dreams. You're the only person who looks at me like I'm normal, he said one day, his voice quiet, almost vulnerable. She smiled. That's because to me you are. He stared at her for a long moment, and she wondered if she'd said something wrong. But then he smiled, a real smile, not the practiced one from billboards and press conferences. Thank you, he whispered. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that. One evening, 3 weeks after they'd met, she was closing the center alone. Miss Park had left early for a family dinner, and Amina was locking up the library section when she felt it, a sharp, twisting cramp in her lower abdomen that made her gasp and brace herself against the bookshelf.
Not now.
Please, Allah, not now. She'd had terrible menstrual cramps since she was 15, the kind that made her curl into a ball and cry, the kind that had made her miss school days back in Bamako. Her mother would make her ginger tea and rub her back and tell her she was strong, that women carried the pain of life itself in their bodies. But she'd run out of pain medication 2 days ago, and she'd been too busy, too distracted by a certain actor's visits, to buy more. She gritted her teeth, locked the doors with shaking hands, and started walking toward the subway station. The November air was crisp and cold, biting at her face, but sweat beaded on her forehead anyway. Each step felt like knives twisting deeper. She wrapped her arms around her stomach, trying to breathe through it, counting her steps.
1, 2,
3. Just make it to the station. She was halfway down the narrow alley, the Hanok houses dark and quiet around her, when she heard the low purr of a car engine. A sleek black car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down. Aminah. It was Min-jae. His voice, concerned and sharp. She tried to smile, tried to act normal even though her vision was starting to blur at the edges.
Hi.
I'm just heading home. He frowned, eyes scanning her face. You're walking like you're hurt. I'm fine, she lied, taking another step and immediately regretting it. You're sweating. In November. That's not fine. She shook her head, opened her mouth to protest, but another cramp hit, this one worse, vicious, and she doubled over slightly, clutching her stomach, a small sound escaping her lips before she could stop it. He was out of the car in seconds, rounding the front, his hand on her elbow. Get in. I can't. Aminah, get in the car.
Now.
His voice was firm, commanding, but his eyes were flooded with worry. She was in too much pain to argue, too exhausted to pretend anymore. In the car, she leaned back against the leather seat, breathing hard, trying not to cry, trying to maintain some shred of dignity. The heating was on, the interior smelled like his cologne, and soft music played from the speakers. But all she could focus on was the pain radiating through her body. He glanced at her every few seconds, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the steering wheel. What's wrong? Should I take you to a hospital? No, she said quickly, her voice strained. It's not. It's just cramps. I'll be fine. She saw his shoulders relax slightly, saw him exhale slowly. Cramps. Yes. The word came out as almost a whimper. Do you have medication at home? She shook her head, eyes closed, trying to will the pain away. He cursed under his breath in Korean, words she'd heard in dramas but never learned the meaning of, then made a U-turn so sharp she had to brace herself. 10 minutes later, they were parked outside a 24-hour pharmacy. Stay here, he said, pulling his mask and cap on. I'll be right back. She wanted to protest, wanted to tell him he didn't have to do this, but he was already out of the car. He came back 7 minutes later with a bag full of supplies. Pain relievers, 2 types. Heating pads, the expensive gel ones. Herbal teas that promised relief. A bottle of water. Even a chocolate bar. Take these now, he said, twisting open the water bottle and shaking 2 pills into her palm. She obeyed, swallowing them down, her hands trembling. The water was cold and perfect. He watched her with an intensity that made her heart race even through the pain. Better? Not yet, she admitted. But thank you. Instead of starting the car toward her dorm, he drove in a different direction, toward the wealthier part of the city where the buildings grew taller and the streets grew quieter. Where are we going? She asked weakly, her voice barely above a whisper. My place. You're not going back to your dorm like this. Min-jae, I can't. You can and you will. He glanced at her, his expression soft but determined. Don't argue with me right now, Amina. Please. The please broke her resistance. She was too tired to fight, too much in pain to care about propriety or what Nia would say or what this meant. His apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering Seoul skyline, the Han River snaking through the city like a ribbon of light. Minimalist furniture in shades of gray and white, warm recessed lighting, abstract art on the walls. It looked like something out of a magazine, out of a drama set. He led her to the guest room, his hand gentle on her elbow, steadying her. The room was simple but elegant, a large bed with crisp white linens, a nightstand with a small lamp, blackout curtains. She collapsed onto the bed, curling into herself, pulling her knees to her chest. The pain was still there, still sharp, still relentless. He disappeared and came back moments later with a heating pad, a thick blanket, a glass of water, and the herbal tea he'd bought, already steeped and steaming. He crouched beside the bed, his face level with hers, and she realized this was the closest they'd ever been. She could see every detail, the concern etched in his features, the way his hair fell slightly into his eyes, the small scar near his eyebrow she'd never noticed in his dramas. May I? He asked, gesturing to her stomach with a heating pad. She nodded, too vulnerable to speak. He placed it gently over her lower abdomen, adjusting it carefully, his touch feather-light even through her clothes. The warmth spread slowly, blessed relief beginning to seep into her muscles. She flinched at first from the heat, then relaxed, a small sigh escaping her lips. He pulled the blanket over her, tucking it around her shoulders like she was something precious. The tea will help too, he said softly, setting the cup on the nightstand within her reach. My sister swears by it. You have a sister? She asked, her voice muffled against the pillow.
2.
Older. They'd kill me if I didn't take care of someone in pain. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering for just a second longer than necessary, and her breath hitched. Not from pain this time. Sleep, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll be right outside if you need me. Call my name, and I'll hear you. I promise. She wanted to say something, wanted to thank him properly, wanted to ask why he was being so kind, but exhaustion pulled her under like a tide. The last thing she remembered was the warmth of the heating pad and the faint sound of him moving quietly around the apartment, the knowledge that he was close, that she wasn't alone. When she woke, it was dark outside. The Seoul skyline glittered beyond the windows like scattered diamonds. The pain had dulled to a manageable ache, a ghost of what it had been. She sat up slowly, testing her body, and felt almost human again. The heating pad had gone cold against her stomach. She removed it carefully and noticed for the first time that there was a tray on the bedside table. Soup still warm in a ceramic bowl. Ginger tea in a delicate cup. Sliced fruit arranged carefully on a small plate. And a note in his handwriting, neat and precise. Eat. Then rest more.
You scared me today.
Don't do that again. MJ. She smiled, her heart doing that dangerous fluttering thing again. The thing that felt like falling and flying at the same time. She ate slowly, savoring the warmth of the soup, the gentle spice of the ginger, the sweetness of the fruit. Everything tasted like care, like someone had thought about what would make her feel better and had made it happen. When she finished, she set the tray down carefully and tiptoed out of the room. The apartment was quiet except for the soft clicking of keyboard keys. She followed the sound to the living room. He was on the couch, laptop open, glasses perched on his nose, looking unfairly handsome in a simple white t-shirt and gray sweatpants. His hair was slightly messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. The lamp beside him cast a warm glow, and she could see he was reading something, his brow furrowed in concentration. A script, maybe, or emails. The domestic simplicity of the scene made her chest ache. He looked up when he heard her soft footsteps, and his face transformed, worry melting into relief, and then something warmer. Feeling better? He asked, pulling his glasses off. She nodded, suddenly shy, suddenly aware that she was in Kang Min-jae's apartment in the middle of the night, alone with him, looking probably terrible with her headscarf askew and her clothes wrinkled. Much better. The soup was perfect. Thank you. She gestured vaguely back toward the bedroom. I should go. Sit, he said, patting the spot next to him on the couch. It wasn't a question. She hesitated, her heart hammering, then sat, keeping a careful distance between them, aware of every inch of space, every breath. He closed his laptop and turned to face her fully, giving her his complete attention in a way that made her feel like the only person in the world. You scared me today, he said quietly, echoing his note. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Don't apologize. His voice was soft but firm. Just don't hide things from me. If you're in pain, if something's wrong, tell me. She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers together. I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't want to bother you. It's a big deal to me. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Her eyes snapped to his. He was watching her with an intensity that made her chest tighten. Why? She whispered. He leaned closer, so close she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Because you've become someone I can't stop thinking about. Her heart stopped. He smiled, that devastating smile that had ruined her from the very first drama. And I think you need to stay here tonight. Doctor's orders. You're not a doctor, she said, breathless. No, he murmured, his gaze dropping to her lips for just a second before meeting her eyes again. But I play one on TV. Does that count? She laughed, and the sound broke something open between them. He reached out, tucked a lock of her hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. Stay, he whispered. She nodded, unable to speak. He stood, pulled her to her feet gently, and led her back to the guest room. At the door he paused, turned back. Amina? Yes. I meant what I said. You're someone I can't stop thinking about. Then he closed the door, leaving her standing there, heart racing, world spinning, wondering if this was real life or just another one of her dreams. But as she climbed back into bed, pulling the blanket around her, she heard a sound from the living room. Voices. Multiple voices. And one of them was a woman's voice, sharp and angry. Min-jae, we need to talk.
Now.
Amina's blood ran cold. She pressed her ear to the door. How did you even get in here? Min-jae's voice, tense. I have a key. Remember? We need to discuss the wedding. My father is getting impatient. Wedding? Amina's heart plummeted. There is no wedding, Jiwoo. We've been over this. Your agency says otherwise. And my family has already made arrangements. You can't just walk away from this, Min-jae. You signed the contract. The world tilted. Amina stumbled back from the door, hand over her mouth. Contract? Wedding? What had she just walked into? If you want to find out what happens next, don't miss episode 2. Will Amina confront Min-jae, or will she run before her heart breaks? Is this contract marriage the end of their story before it even begins? Or is there more to this than meets the eye? Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens when she opens that door. As always, rate this episode on a scale of 10 and tell me where you're watching from. I'll see you in episode 2.